The amber glow of a kerosene lamp cast long shadows across Benjamin Mitchell's weathered face as he maintained his vigil, calloused hands gripping his daughter's tiny fingers while she burned with fever. Colorado Territory, 1876, a year that had already taken his wife and threatened to claim his only child as well. "Stay with me, Sarah," Ben whispered, dabbing her forehead with a damp cloth. 6 years old and fighting pneumonia, little Sarah Mitchell had been bedridden for 9 days. The nearest doctor was in Denver, more than 2 days' ride away, and Ben couldn't leave her alone. Not like this. Outside, the wind howled against the small ranch house Ben had built with his own hands after moving west from Pennsylvania 3 years ago. Dreams of a cattle empire had slowly been replaced by the simple goal of survival. Now, even that seemed uncertain. A knock at the door startled him from his thoughts. "Mr. Mitchell," a woman's voice called. "It's Bethany Ellis from the new settlement. I've brought supplies." Ben hesitated, glancing down at Sarah's flushed face before reluctantly releasing her hand. He moved to the door, checking the shotgun propped nearby habit in these parts before opening it. The woman standing on his porch wasn't what he expected. She wore a practical riding dress, her honey blonde hair pulled back in a simple bun, a few strands escaping to frame a face both determined and kind. Behind her, a dappled mare stood patiently, saddlebags bulging. "Madam," Ben nodded, suddenly aware of his disheveled appearance. He hadn't shaved in days, and his clothes carried the sour smell of worry. "The shopkeeper in Willow Creek mentioned your situation," she said, producing a basket. "I've brought medicine, food, and fresh linens." Ben stared at her, speechless. Willow Creek was nearly 15 miles away. "You rode all that way, alone?" "I'm the closest thing to a doctor this territory has right now," she replied matter-of-factly. "May I come in?" Still stunned, Ben stepped aside. "My daughter, I know," Bethany said gently. "That's why I'm here." She moved past him with quiet confidence, setting her basket on the rough-hewn table before approaching Sarah's bed. Ben watched as she laid a cool hand on his daughter's forehead, her movements practiced and sure. "How long has she been like this?" Bethany asked, already unpacking bottles and herbs from her basket. 9 days, Ben answered, his voice rough. "Started with a cough, got worse fast. My wife." He stopped, the words catching. "My wife would have known what to do." Bethany's eyes softened with understanding. "I heard about Mrs. Mitchell. I'm sorry for your loss." Ben nodded, words failing him. "Mary had died 6 months ago in childbirth along with their son. The baby never even drew breath." "Mr. Mitchell, I need fresh water and a pot boiled clean," Bethany directed, rolling up her sleeves. "And please bring me your cleanest shirt. I'll need strips of cloth." For the first time in days, Ben felt a flicker of hope. He moved quickly, following her instructions. When he returned with the water and his Sunday shirt, Bethany had already mixed several powders in a cup. "This is willow bark and boneset," she explained, "for the fever. And I've brought tincture of lobelia for her lungs. We need to get the phlegm loosened." "Where did you learn all this?" Ben asked, watching as she gently lifted Sarah's head to administer the medicine. "My father was a doctor back in Boston," she replied. "I assisted him for years, learned everything I could." A shadow crossed her face. "Though the medical college wouldn't admit me." Ben watched her work, noticing her gentle efficiency. "What brought you out here, Miss Ellis?" "Just Bethany, please." She tore his shirt into strips, creating a poultice. "And the same thing that brings most people west. A new beginning. Though I admit I didn't expect to be the only person with medical knowledge in a 50-mile radius." Throughout the evening, Bethany worked tirelessly. She showed Ben how to create a steam tent with blankets and hot water infused with eucalyptus oil. She applied mustard plasters to Sarah's chest, and fed her spoonfuls of honey mixed with medicine. Near midnight, Sarah's breathing eased slightly. "A good sign," Bethany said, washing her hands in the basin. "But she's not out of danger yet." Ben gestured to the small parlor. "You should rest, miss. Bethany, take my chair. I'll watch over her." "We'll both watch," she replied. "And tomorrow I'll teach you how to continue the treatments." In the quiet hours that followed, Ben found himself sharing more than he had with anyone since Mary died. He told Bethany about his cattle ranch dreams, about the harsh winters, about the daily struggle since becoming both mother and father to Sarah. "And what about you?" he asked, noticing how the lamplight caught the gold in her hair. "You mentioned Boston, but nothing else." Bethany's hand stilled on the compress she was preparing. "There's not much to tell. Father died 2 years ago. Mother followed 6 months later. The practice went to my brother, who had little use for a sister who thought she could be a physician." Her voice remained steady, but Ben heard the old hurt. "So I gathered what knowledge and supplies I could and headed west. Arrived in Willow Creek last month." "Brave thing to do," Ben observed. "Necessary thing," she corrected. "Besides, people need help out here more than they do back east." Dawn broke with Sarah's fever finally breaking. The little girl's eyes fluttered open, clear for the first time in days. "Papa," Ben was at her side instantly. "I'm here, sweetheart." "I'm thirsty," she whispered. Bethany appeared with water, helping Sarah sip slowly. "Hello there," she said with a warm smile. "My name is Bethany. I've been helping your father take care of you." Sarah studied her with solemn eyes. "Are you an angel like Mama?" The question caught both adults off guard. Ben felt his throat tighten. "No, sweetheart," Bethany recovered first. "I'm just someone who knows a little about medicine." "You look like an angel," Sarah insisted before drifting back to sleep, this time peacefully. Ben walked Bethany to the porch, the morning sun highlighting the exhaustion on both their faces. "I don't know how to thank you." "No thanks needed," she replied. "But I should return tomorrow to check on her progress. The pneumonia isn't fully cleared." "You're welcome anytime," Ben said, suddenly reluctant to see her go. "I mean that." Bethany's return the next day brought more than medicine. She arrived with a pot of hearty stew, fresh bread, and a small rag doll for Sarah. "I noticed she didn't have many toys," Bethany explained, almost apologetically. "Mary used to make things for her," Ben said. "I'm not much good at that sort of thing." Sarah, sitting up in bed for the first time in days, clutched the doll to her chest with delight. "Thank you, Miss Angel." The nickname stuck, despite Bethany's gentle corrections. Over the next week, she rode out to the Mitchell Ranch every other day. Sarah grew stronger with each visit, while Ben found himself watching the trail from his window, anticipating the sight of Bethany's dappled mare cresting the hill. During her third visit, he invited her to stay for supper, a humble offering of rabbit stew that he'd prepared with special care. "This is delicious," she said, seeming genuinely surprised. "One thing a widower learns fast is cooking," Ben replied. "Though nothing fancy." "Better than what I manage," Bethany admitted. "I can mix medicines with precision, but cooking eludes me." Sarah, now allowed to sit at the table, giggled. "Papa says cooking is just following directions, like building a fence." "Is that so?" Bethany raised an eyebrow at Ben. "Seems I've been found out," he chuckled. "But it's true enough. You just need practice." "Perhaps you could teach me sometime," Bethany suggested, then immediately looked down at her plate, a flush coloring her cheeks. That evening, as Ben walked her to her horse, an awkward silence fell between them. "Miss Ellis, Bethany," he began, "I was wondering if you might join us for Sunday dinner. Sarah would be pleased, and—" He hesitated. "I would as well." In the fading light, he couldn't quite read her expression. "I'd like that very much," she finally answered. "Though I should warn you, folks in town talk." "Let them," Ben replied. They've found little else to occupy their time since I arrived. The following Sunday, Bethany arrived wearing a blue dress that matched her eyes, her hair arranged more carefully than Ben had seen before. He realized he'd never seen her in anything but her practical riding clothes, and the transformation left him momentarily speechless. "You look." He searched for the right word, beautiful. She thanked him with a shy smile, handing him a small jar. "Preserves. I didn't make them. Mrs. Thompson at the general store did, but I thought they might go well with dinner." Sarah, fully recovered and bursting with energy, monopolized Bethany's attention through most of the meal, showing her a collection of rocks and feathers, and demonstrating how she could now read several words in the Bible. Ben watched them together, a bittersweet ache in his chest. Sarah needed a mother's influence, that much was clear. And well, he was beginning to realize his own needs weren't entirely practical. After Sarah was tucked in bed, Ben and Bethany sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the distant mountains purple and gold. The early summer air carried the scent of sage and wildflowers. "She's remarkable," Bethany said, "smart and resilient." "Like her mother," Ben replied, then after a moment added, "though Mary was never quite so headstrong. I fear that comes from me." "A good quality in a girl," Bethany observed. "She'll need it." They sat in companionable silence until Bethany spoke again. "The Wilcoxes have offered me a small cabin on their property. I'll be moving there next week." "Closer than town," Ben noted, trying to keep his tone neutral. "Yes. And they've agreed to let me establish a proper infirmary. It seems word of Sarah's recovery has spread. I've had 3 patients seek me out already." "I'm not surprised," Ben said. "You have a gift." Their conversation drifted to other topics: the cattle market, the rumors of a railroad coming through the valley, the harsh winter everyone predicted. When the stars emerged in full force, Bethany reluctantly rose to leave. "I should go. It's a long ride back to town." Ben stood as well. "You could stay in Sarah's room. She'd be delighted," and he stopped, realizing how improper the suggestion might sound. "Forgive me, that was presumptuous." "It was practical," Bethany corrected him gently, "but also improper. And as the closest thing to a respectable woman in this territory, I should probably maintain appearances." Her smile took any sting from the words. "Of course," Ben agreed, though disappointment settled in his chest. "May I at least escort you partway?" They rode in silence through the moonlit landscape, the only sounds the steady rhythm of hoofbeats and the occasional call of a night bird. At the crossroads where their paths would diverge, Ben reined his horse alongside hers. "Will you come again next Sunday?" he asked. Bethany studied him for a long moment. "Is that wise, Mr. Mitchell?" "Ben," he corrected, "and probably not, but I'm asking anyway." "Then yes," she answered simply. The pattern established itself through the summer months. Bethany would ride out to the Mitchell ranch every Sunday, sometimes bringing patients from outlying homesteads to her new infirmary on the way back. Sarah flourished under her influence, learning basic nursing skills and developing a fascination with the natural remedies Bethany used. Ben found himself looking forward to their conversations on the porch after Sarah was asleep, discussions that ranged from philosophy to politics to personal histories. He learned about Bethany's childhood in Boston, her struggle to be taken seriously in medical circles, and the scandal that erupted when she attempted to enroll in medical school. "Father supported me, at least," she recalled one evening. "He used to say, 'Hands that heal shouldn't be judged by their gender.'" "Wise man," Ben commented. "He was, though even he couldn't imagine I'd end up administering medicine on the frontier." She smiled wryly. "Sometimes I wonder what he'd think of my life now." "I suspect he'd be proud," Ben said softly. "As he should be." The warmth in Bethany's eyes told him he'd said the right thing, and for a moment he considered reaching for her hand. Instead, he changed the subject, asking about a new treatment she'd mentioned for rheumatism. By late August, the entire settlement knew about the widower and the lady doctor. Gossip ranged from the benign predictions of an imminent engagement to the scandalous, with some suggesting impropriety in their Sunday meetings. Ben ignored it all, but he noticed Bethany growing increasingly conscious of appearances. "Perhaps we should meet in town sometimes," she suggested one evening. "At the church social, or are you ashamed to be seen with a rancher?" Ben interrupted, more sharply than he intended. Bethany's eyes widened. "Of course not, but your reputation is already established as the strange Easterner who talks to his cattle," he finished for her, his tone softening. "And yours as the woman doctor. I doubt we could damage either further." She laughed then, the sound carrying across the open porch. "You make a fair point, Mr. Mitchell." "Ben," he reminded her for perhaps the 100th time. "Ben," she conceded, and the way she said his name sent a shiver through him. That night, walking to her horse under a canopy of stars, Ben finally found his courage. He stopped, taking both her hands in his. "Bethany, I need to say something." She looked up at him, her expression unreadable in the darkness. "Yes, these past months, having you here, it's been—" He struggled, words failing him. "Damn it, I'm no good at this." "At what?" she asked softly, though he suspected she knew. "At telling a woman I'm falling in love with her," he said simply. The silence that followed seemed endless. Finally, Bethany spoke. "Ben, this is complicated." His heart sank. "Because of Sarah?" "No," she shook her head. "Sarah is wonderful. It's my work. The freedom I've found here in Boston. Marriage would have meant the end of my medical practice." "This isn't Boston," Ben pointed out, "and I'm not asking you to stop being who you are." "Aren't you?" she challenged gently. "What would people say about a married woman riding alone to treat patients, about a wife who might be called away at any hour?" "I don't give a damn what people say," Ben replied firmly. "Never have." "Easy words," Bethany sighed, "but reality is different." Ben released her hands, stepping back. "I understand, I've spoken too soon." "No," Bethany reached for him. "You haven't. I just need time to think. This isn't a simple decision." "Take all the time you need," Ben said, though disappointment weighed heavily in his chest. The following Sunday, Bethany didn't come, nor the next. Ben told himself not to ride to her cabin to give her the space she'd requested. Sarah asked daily when Miss Angel would return, and Ben had no answer beyond, "When she's ready, sweetheart." Nearly 3 weeks passed before Ben, tending cattle in the north pasture, spotted a rider approaching. Even at a distance, he recognized Bethany's straight-backed posture and distinctive mare. His heart raced as he rode to meet her. She looked tired, he thought, noting the shadows beneath her eyes. "Bethany, Ben," she nodded, "I hope I'm not intruding." "Never," he assured her. "Sarah's been asking for you, we both have." She managed a small smile. "I've missed you both as well, but I needed to be certain." She paused. "There was a cholera outbreak in the mining camp east of here. I've been there, helping." Concern flared through him. "Are you all right? Cholera is dangerous." "I'm fine," she assured him, "and the worst has passed, but it clarified things for me." "How so?" he asked cautiously. Bethany looked directly at him. "I realized I couldn't imagine facing something like that again without coming home to you afterward." She took a deep breath. "If your offer still stands." For a moment, Ben couldn't speak. Then he was off his horse, lifting Bethany from her saddle, his arms encircling her waist. "It stands," he said roughly. "It will always stand." Their first kiss was tentative, a gentle exploration that quickly deepened with months of unspoken longing. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Ben rested his forehead against hers. We should probably discuss the practical aspects. Bethany laughed. Always the pragmatist. Very well, what do you propose? Marriage, obviously, Ben replied. As soon as possible. You'll continue your medical practice. We'll build a proper infirmary right here on the ranch, centrally located for the surrounding homesteads. You've given this some thought, she observed, smiling. Every day since you left, he admitted. And Sarah? Bethany asked, her expression growing serious. I would never try to replace her mother. Sarah already loves you, Ben assured her. She's been drawing pictures of the three of us for months now, though I should warn you, in most of them you have wings. Bethany's laughter rang out across the open prairie. I suppose I can live with that. They were married 2 weeks later in Willow Creek's small church, with Sarah as their only attendant, proudly carrying wildflowers she'd picked herself that morning. The entire settlement turned out for the occasion, even those who had gossiped most viciously about their courtship. Seems you've won them over, Ben whispered as they greeted well-wishers after the ceremony. Amazing what curing a few cases of mountain fever can do for one's reputation, Bethany replied with a wink. Their homecoming to the ranch revealed the community's true feelings. During the ceremony, neighbors had descended on the Mitchell property, bringing food, gifts, and labor. The small room adjacent to the main house had been converted into a basic infirmary, complete with shelves for Bethany's medicines and an examination table built by the blacksmith. We figured the doc would need a proper place to work, explained old Mr. Hargrove, who had been openly skeptical of a female physician until Bethany cured his crippling lumbago. That night, after Sarah was asleep exhausted from the excitement, Ben and Bethany stood on their porch, his arm around her waist as they gazed at the star-filled sky. Happy? He asked simply. More than I ever thought possible, she replied, leaning into his embrace. Though I have one condition for this marriage. Name it. I want to teach Sarah everything I know about medicine, Bethany said. If she's interested, I want her to have the opportunities I didn't. I wouldn't have it any other way, Ben agreed. Though I suspect she'll need a more formal education eventually. We'll manage, Bethany assured him. There's talk of a proper school in Denver in a few years, and medical colleges will surely begin admitting women soon. Ben smiled at her optimism. If not, she'll have learned from the best. The years that followed brought challenges and joys in equal measure. Bethany's reputation as a healer spread throughout the territory, bringing a steady stream of patients to their door. Ben's cattle ranch flourished, allowing them to build a larger house with a dedicated medical wing. Sarah grew into a studious young woman with her father's determination and Bethany's compassion. At 16, she announced her intention to become a doctor, just like Ma, a declaration that brought tears to Bethany's eyes. 2 years later, when Sarah left for schooling in Denver, the house felt emptier. But by then, the Mitchells had added 2 more children to their family, a son, James, now 8, and a daughter, Elizabeth, just turned 6. Both showed the same curiosity about Bethany's medical work that Sarah had, though James balanced it with his father's love of ranching. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Ben surprised Bethany with a proper microscope ordered from Chicago, a luxury she'd mentioned wanting but considered too extravagant. Ben Mitchell, you're a dangerous man, she exclaimed upon opening the carefully packed crate. How did you manage this? I have my ways, he replied mysteriously, enjoying her delight. In truth, he'd sold his prized stallion to afford it, but seeing her happiness made the sacrifice worthwhile. That evening, after the children were asleep, they sat on the porch swing that had replaced their separate chairs years ago. The tradition of evening conversations had continued throughout their marriage, though now they included discussions of their children's futures and the growing settlement around them. Did you ever imagine this life? Ben asked, his arm around her shoulders. When you rode out here that first day to see Sarah, Bethany considered the question. No, she admitted. I was focused on saving your daughter. I certainly wasn't looking for a husband. And now, he prompted. Now I can't imagine any other path, she said simply. Though I'm glad I insisted on continuing my practice. Ben chuckled. As if I could have stopped you. True, she acknowledged with a smile. You've never tried to change me. That's why this works. They sat in companionable silence, watching the stars emerge. Ben thought about the desperate man he'd been, sitting beside his daughters sick, nearly broken by loss and fear. How different his life had become because a determined young woman had ridden 15 miles alone to bring medicine and hope. I love you, Bethany Mitchell, he said softly. She turned her face up to his, the years having added character rather than diminished her beauty. And I love you, Benjamin Mitchell, always. Their kiss was as sweet as their first, tinged now with the depth of shared history and the comfortable certainty of a love that had been tested and proven resilient. Above them, the vast Colorado sky sparkled with possibilities much like the future they had built together on a foundation of courage, respect, and healing. When Sarah returned from medical school, 8 years later, one of the first women to graduate from the program in Denver, she found her parents still sitting on that same porch swing in the evenings, still discussing everything from medicine to philosophy, still deeply in love. The ranch had grown. The infirmary had expanded into a proper clinic serving the now thriving community, and both Mitchell and Ellis names were respected throughout the territory. You built something remarkable here, Sarah told them the night before her own wedding to a young doctor she'd met in school. We did, Ben agreed, taking Bethany's hand. Though I still maintain it all started because your mother is the most stubborn woman west of the Mississippi. Persistent, Bethany corrected with the ease of an old debate. The word is persistent. As you say, my love, Ben conceded with a wink to his daughter. As always.